Hello, 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 boys and girls. Good morning. Welcome in. Doggos are still going wild, so we're gonna get going anyway. Coffee is cooked. Coffee is cooked. The games, I'm getting them loaded, and I don't think the dogs have got any chill in their bones today. I don't think there's any chill in any bones. Why is my camera like in the middle of the screen all of a sudden? What's going on there? You get back in the corner, you. Don't know why that's decided to be all over the place. How are we all doing, boys and girls? I survived Ikea yesterday. Woo! Touch and go for a minute. Fortunately, I don't have too much stuff to build. That's the only thing we ended up with was an armchair for Mrs. Manthius's office, so it's all good. And of course, some meatballs and hot dogs and, the usual stuff you can't go to Ikea and not buy. But how are we all doing today? We good? We good? I got to relist some decor first thing. Scout for some deals. And then we'll see where we go from there. Yeah, I guess technically I'm always the first one to the stream. That is, I do notice, especially at like peak times of the peak season, should we say? People clearly just leave my stream open in a window. So then when I then go live again, it just goes boop and automatically pops up. So some people beat me to it even. Right. Place them outside in the snow. We've just been out for like a half-hour walk. So they should have less energy than they do, technically. But they have their breakfast and then they do some Zooms and then they chill out for a little bit. It's just, I'm not gonna lie, it's a day off today, isn't it? It's like a generalized public holiday, I think. Or at least it is here in Finland. What's it, like Epiphany Day or something? It's some, I don't know, some amount of days after something else has happened, I don't know. But yeah, 6th of January is a day off most places, I think, or a lot of places. So I'm not taking a day off because I play video games for a living. Why do I want to take a day off? But the wife is taking a day off today. She's she wouldn't get out of bed to help me with dog walks this morning, which is why I'm late. But it's all good. Yeah, time to throw the Christmas tree out day. Yeah, that's literally it. Just yeet it out the window, watch all of the needles fall off it in one go. Yep. Sack off the Christmas tree, get it gone kind of day. We got rid of our Christmas decorations already a week ago. The honest, and with two puppies, we didn't have that many Christmas decorations, and the ones we did have were sufficiently elevated. Because they do like to chew absolutely everything. So we were just like, let's just get rid of them. We'll move them out. Working from home, 4 centimeters of snow, so the entire country is down. Yeah, Jack showed us a picture yesterday of Netherlands suffering with the snow. And I'm like, cute. I haven't done any snow shoveling this morning, but it doesn't seem to have snowed much more since yesterday, but we are due more today. I'm kind of waiting for the snow to turn up, and then I'll get rid of it, move it where it needs to go. Later today, I think. That's probably the plan. Fun in the dog park yesterday? I mean, the dogs had fun. There was this little poodle there that definitely didn't look as if it was going to survive the temperatures. I mean, my dogs are like super duper mega fluffy. They're like, my dogs and huskies are the only two breeds that are like really designed for this weather. This little poodle with its skinny ass legs and its little coat came along shivering. I'm like, that poor dog's not going to make it. But they all did Zooms and they all had fun, and so it was fine. But we didn't stay in the dog park for more than about 20 minutes because it was minus 22 degrees. Soon as the sun, like it was about -17 when the sun was still up, but soon as the sun went down, the temperature dropped. It was like -20, -22. Which the dogs running around, they're keeping themselves physically warm, but it's just not good for your lungs when it's that cold. And I don't even believe even these dogs are designed to be outside in that cold for very long. So this little poodle shivering was like, oh my god. But they had fun anyway. They did some zooms. Alright, not too much to do on this one. Good playlist again today. It's just a continuation of yesterday's. Technically, it's the Break Stuff radio. I just selected Limp Bizkit Break Stuff and told it to make a radio station from it, and here we go. Obviously, if you're not so it is a slight change of music to what we usually have, so if it's not your jam, please remember there's always the YouTube stream where it's just game sounds and me. There's no music on YouTube because of, well, clear and obvious copyright reasons. 20-30 centimeters of snow outside, nobody bothers to clean it. Main roads and pavements at best. Oh, well, I mean, yeah, we can't expect much more than main roads and pavements here, but the driveway and the road, the small paths to the house and stuff, that's all my duty. It's the downside of owning your property. You become responsible for it all. Fortunately, there's plenty of upsides though, so I don't mind too much. One of you, let's go. One of you, let's go. One of you, and let's go. One of you. Boom. Right. We're going to go top to bottom today. Go top to bottom. Get shit relisted. Get stuff relisted. Scan for some cheapy deals. And then once we've relisted everything, we can see how much we actually sold yesterday. And hope that we are consistently selling more than we are buying. But yesterday was another relatively heavy day of buying stuff. I need to stop buying stuff is the honest answer. Oh yeah, these rails are going to have no sales on them either because these are literally like these are big boy realms where we buy things from. Five flights grimoire. Yoink. Excuse me. Do you have to concentrate on the rare ore to get high quality diamonds? Otherwise, you only get quality 1. Prospecting has been really broken on the beta. You can't get half the skill points you're meant to get. I don't know if they've fixed it yet, but because of that, I haven't looked at prospecting rates in any way, shape, or form yet. We will jump back onto the beta once I feel it's at a point where it's worth paying more attention to. The issue I have right now is it feels kind of until it's we've done what we can do with what we've got. So we can see the recipes. Sorry, we can see the patterns, we can see the materials, we know roughly how all the pieces of the puzzle are going to fit together. But for optimizing it, we got to wait till the balance pass has been finished. So I'm not in too much of a rush. Checked yesterday on the beta and they have reduced the recipe difficulty. For prospecting, reducing the recipe difficulty, it would be an interesting one because that means they've fixed it wrong. The reason, for enchanting, I don't know what enchanting was doing. No, I definitely wouldn't assume all professions. There's very clearly different devs responsible for different professions. I've Because we seem to get like consistent changes for some and very inconsistent changes for others. And it's definitely led me to believe that there's multiple devs responsible for, like, you're responsible for this one, you're responsible for that one, in somewhat shape or form. But yeah, we'll poke around in a little bit more detail when there should be a build soon. Like, we're due a build. We've not had a new build for anything since December 23rd. So nothing has changed since December 23rd. So since before Christmas, nothing has changed. So I'm not going to spend too much time poking around there until we get a new build. Hey, no barking. You can play ball, but no barking. Do I want any more Algari fences on the cheap? Sure, why not? Let's put those in the bank. What did we buy here? So yeah, so as soon as we get a new build, we can poke around in a lot more detail. I've made this mistake before. I remember I remember pretty clearly in both the Dragonflight and the War Within beta to a degree, because I didn't have alpha access during the War Within beta. I like jumped straight onto the beta soon as it came out, and we poked around and we fiddled around, and the frustration was more so than anything else is you tried to figure something out, or you tried to look at something and then a new build turned up and it all changed again. So I'm trying to avoid repeating the same thing 15 times, especially because it also has the knock-on effect of that people pay attention to it when it's broken and then it gets fixed, and yeah, it's a problem. We'll as soon as the new build comes out, we'll have a real good dig around though. Right, let's simply post all of this on the auction house. There's no chance half of this sells because these are big. I mean, I'm almost about ready to not even bother trying selling on some of these big realms because nothing ever hits the auction house. So, and it seems a bit silly posting 2 items on Kazakh, you know. But we're here because we need to buy things from these realms. Oh no, not Warbank. Auction ass. Takes me a minute to get into the swing of this routine as well in the morning. Yeah, we're literally posting one thing. It's like it's genuinely not even worth. Anything that doesn't get listed, we put in the war bank, and I can reshuffle it about later. It'll be interesting to see just how they finish balancing professions, though, because there is a lot of things that are 50-50 whether they might force you to use concentration on them. It'd be an odd move because they've always had pushback from the player base whenever they've tried to do that before. They seem to go by the logic nowadays that you should be able to get to the point where you can guarantee whatever you want to guarantee, and even if that's in terms of like processing, but yeah, when it comes to prospecting like thorium ore though, I don't like, you know, because it's like a null stone and doesn't have quality to begin with, you ain't never going to reach like a skill threshold to guarantee quality 2 output. That's just never going to happen. And I think that's meant to just kind of show you that, okay, you're not really meant to prospect this. I mean, you can, but you'd be kind of mental too. What do we do? Sell 45k worth of stuff here. That's a reasonable start. We take that. $50k worth of stuff on this realm. Dalaran Runic Anvil for 37. Hello. Yoink. Nothing down here. Only a single lamp on this realm. Everything reposted. Then we'll do a quick scan for some deals. Prospecting is one of those things, though. It doesn't really matter how it ends up being balanced. You always make silly money with prospecting. Like, it's genuinely impossible to go too wrong with prospecting most of the time. It's a maths game, and it's a maths game that most people don't like to play. And due to that, it's nearly always really lucrative at the beginning of an expansion. Now, you do have to do a little bit of work to keep your nose ahead of everybody else, such as making sure that you are sort of like putting your spec points in the right place. You know, hyper focusing on resourcefulness and that sort of stuff is usually a smart play. These are less than 1,000 gold apiece. These are just like easy, quick, cheap flip fodder. That's a cheap rug. Why is there so many of them? Stats over skill for prospecting. Unless you're able to max build it within a very, very short period of time, yes. Why is there so many of these? Oh, there isn't that so many. Because it's a maths game, you just want to make sure that at any single possible point of you doing any of it, that you are doing it at the cheapest possible price. Because if you're not, somebody else is. And that means you're giving the opportunity for somebody else to undercut you. Which is why stats over skill, even, I would say. Unless there is a scenario where you have access to enough knowledge points to be able to hit a threshold, like a threshold, for example, of where you start guaranteeing something, then obviously it makes more sense to designate points into skill. This is why there's always nuance to these answers, but shit, we got loads of stuff here. Must have bought a bunch of other things as well. How are we doing, Jack? Welcome in. Mounted mining will be earned earlier. Yeah, I saw Wowhead making a post on that. It just normalizes herbalism and mining so that it's 40 points for each profession rather than 60 for one and 40 for another, which was odd. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it's front page newsworthy, but you know what Wowhead's like. They're clearly... There's not been a new build of anything since December 23rd, so Wowhead are clearly desperate for articles right now. Right, we need to quick fire through these a little bit faster. What stats? You're not multi-crafting on prospecting, right? No. Hence why, hence why it's about putting points in the right place. You play to the strengths of whatever it is you're crafting at the time. If it's something that benefits from multi-craft is king. If it can't multi-craft, then resourcefulness is king. But if there's enough knowledge points within close range of you to reach a skill threshold, you should also probably consider going for that first. Why there's no like strict 100% right answers with the spec trees, because you have to take two things into consideration. You have to consider how many knowledge points have you got right now, but how many knowledge points could you easily and quickly go and get. And if there's enough knowledge points to quickly reach a threshold, then that sometimes becomes the better choice. But that will be a short-term win against other people that haven't done the hard work yet. It's why the beginning of an expansion is kind of funky to play, because it is truly the only point where your decisions really kind of matter. Much past season 1, by the time you're in season 2, there's no decisions to be made with knowledge points. It is a flat out assumption that you have full build or that you won't make profit. Because enough time has passed and enough knowledge points have been possible to obtain that if you haven't done it, somebody else has. But yeah, first couple of weeks are always quite fun. From what I've seen so far, there doesn't look to be as many knowledge points to be obtained quite as quickly. You might only be getting, well, let's do some quick napkin maths. Let's say you get 10 to 15 knowledge points maximum from patron orders. You're going to get a handful of first-time craft bonuses, but that's going to vary between professions. You have 24 knowledge points in terms of treasures, which you can fly around and pick up. So let's just say 24 treasures. Let's just give a very generous 16 to make the numbers nice from like weekly quest, treasures, and patron orders. So let's say you can get 40 knowledge points in the first week. Then you've got 10 knowledge points from if you get the renown up to as high as it needs to be. So that's 50 knowledge points. Well, the 10 from abundance is only for gathering / enchanting. But the reality is you might only have like 50 knowledge points or so, plus or minus first crafts. So there's a chance that harvesting first crafts becomes more important than it has been before. Because you are going to have to be quite clever and careful with how you spend only 50 points. I mean, you got to remember some nodes like take 30, 40 points to fill. So 50 points isn't going to get you very far. You planning on doing another Goblin Guide like you did for the War Within? Yeah, of course, yeah. I'd be kind of foolish not to be honest. I've done one for Decor now. That's available. The midnight approach is going to be slightly different. More modular is the way that I'm going with it. Which is to say that it will maybe not turn up in one big chunk and be like a 300-page document, because I think for most people that was an information overload. I will break it down and make it slightly more modular this time round. But it does mean it might have a slightly more staggered launch rather than me trying to build it in one and, get it out in one. Do I want some cheap rugs? Oh, wait, did I do a post scan on these realms? Oh my god, I'm like absolutely failing. Haha, no surprises. Couldn't list the stupid beanbag chair. You'd have thunk it. And we bought nothing from here. Professional tools are 81 to equip, yeah. Yes, yes. It's problematic for concentration alt armies because, you know, even one level on 50 characters becomes quite a task. Now, first time crafts and stuff will help, I think, but it's still a barrier to overcome at least. Oh, 50k over here. Nothing, nothing. I'm not expecting many sales on these first few realms because I've shuffled. Wu gave me some really good advice yesterday, which was to put the realms where you end up buying a lot of shit from towards the top of the list, just simply so that you hit those first when it comes for like scouting for deals. And once you've found once you've bought most of your stock from the big realms, then you don't need to worry about buying too much from the smaller realms. And it's easier to math out. Did we post anything here? Clearly not. You need 80 or 81 for abundance. I've seen Golden weeks ago saying 81 was needed for something, but I can't remember what. Yeah, that was profession tools. There's been some miscommunications with abundance. Some people saying that you need to be level 90 to do it. It's not the case. You have to get a character to level 90 for your alts to be able to do abundance, because it unlocks account wide with adventure mode. But once you've unlocked adventure mode, you can go back on any alt and do it from the second you can step foot in the zone. On complete abundance on the beta, it's not showing. There's a couple of breadcrumb quests that need to be completed. I've given feedback to Blizzard that they should probably tag them as they should probably tag them with, like, you know, the purple triangle, like important quest tag. Or if they're breadcrumb quests, make them not necessary once adventure mode is unlocked. But the breadcrumb quests are from the quartermaster in Zulaman. Once you've done those, you'll unlock abundance. What's abundance? Abundance is the quick TLDR is it's a 3-minute mini game. 3-minute mini game that is sort of promoted towards to gatherers. It's focused towards herbalism mining, skinning, and weirdly enchanting. But all characters can do it. It's a mini game you have to do that gives gives those gathering professions some knowledge points. It gives everybody else some goodie bags of materials that I guess by the time we get some data on what's actually in them will determine how valuable it is to chase after them or not. It also has the reagent that is needed to the bind on pickup reagent, and quite importantly, the bind on pickup reagent that is needed to craft your epic tier of profession tools. 108k. Hello. Woo! Nothing special, just lots. Yoink. Few sales here, there, and everywhere. You also need to do it on every... Yeah, you do. Like I said, it's a breadcrumb quest that should just be like an autocomplete or not required once adventure mode is unlocked, but, you know, made to be buggy. I love that a character's been named after me. Yeah, Chell the Chip. Doesn't sound fun for an old timey. Well, it depends. You can only run. Well, the mini game can be run an infinite amount of times for like practice runs and for achievements and things, I believe. But the actual abundant runs, kind of like bountiful dells, if you think of the similar system, you can only do abundant runs 8 times a week, I think. But at no more than about 3 minutes a run, it's not a huge undertaking on each character. Like I said, the big question will be: is it worth doing? You know, that's the main thing. Will it actually be worth doing for people? Depends on how many materials are in these goodie bags and what the value of those goodie bags ends up being. But everybody who wants epic profession tools will need to do it a little bit to get fused vitality, I think, is the item. Can you tell me what you're currently doing, just getting started on goal making? Well, at the moment, I'm relisting all my decor. I've been crafting decor, selling decor, flipping decor. I'm actually doing it at a ridiculous scale. I'm selling on every single EU realm now. So this is not exactly where you would start your adventure. You would start your adventure by farming up, getting your axe out, chopping down some lumber, crafting a few bits and pieces, getting the ball rolling. You can always scale up to multi-account full realm flipping eventually. I think crafters can supply the item, the fused. It's a bind on pickup reagent, so standard work order rules would assume that they can't. Bind on pickup reagents, much like the spark, are usually needed to be provided by the person placing the order. But it might be worth having a quick look at the vendor, work order vendor, just to see. With personal orders, you can, of course, but not with public. No, I wouldn't even assume that, because it's a bind on pickup reagent. With personal orders, you have to provide your spark because it's bind on pickup. I wouldn't assume that. I would double check it. The fused vitality might need to be provided by the person placing the order, full stop. If, for whatever reason, it doesn't need to be provided to craft an epic tool, it will then be an opportunity for crafters to quote-unquote sell it, but it will mean that they'll have to farm the abundance to be able to get the currency to buy enough of them to fill those orders to sell them. But it's another opportunity, at least. Another reason to charge a bit of a premium on the commission. Are your add-ons and weak or is private? I cannot find that Goblin Toolbox. Goblin Toolbox is not my add-on. It's made by a community member. But it's not on CurseForge yet because he's still building it out. It's you can play around with the early version of it. It's linked in the Discord. It's got its own channel. Goblin Toolbox add-on in the Discord. $3K over here. 6K on this realm. 3K over here. 15K. Not huge amounts on each realm, but sales nonetheless. Oh, hello, that hadn't finished emptying. Tailoring alchemy strategy for the war within might be useful this time round. Alchemy has very quick and easy access to concentrate on making flasks. Literally zero requirement to get going doing that. Once you've already got an alchemist that's done a little bit of work, your alt alchemists, because it appears the cauldron unlock requirements are a warband thing, meaning your bonus alchemists can turn up and just like they need what 50 moxie or something, and they unlock the recipe for flask and can be like off to the races straight away. 50 moxie is 10 knowledge points, so you just fly around and you pick up 10 treasures and it's GG. Those alchemists have basically zero setup to start producing flasks, which could be interesting. I'm not even scanning for deals on these realms now. I just need to focus on getting all the auctions back on the auction house, and then we can do another pass and be a little bit more thorough. Yeah, and tailoring bolts are looking more positive this time round. I'm not about to turn around and state that they're game-breaking OP best in slot yet, but the bolts are definitely used in more places this time, which will definitely help. Couple of decor sales there, couple of decor sales here. Single sale for 12K over here. Don't think we're going to keep to a higher per realm average today. Doesn't feel. Did 1.4 million sales yesterday. I'm not sure we're going to get quite as high of that number today unless a couple of realms go absolutely boom. Inscription to enchanting looks promising. Not tested yet the alchemy or the engineer one. Yeah, synergy between the professions is going to make it interesting. I do like the setup of professions where some professions are reliant on others. Or at least if you're trying to optimize things, that you can do something relatively easily and cheaply with one profession that can then be fed into another. Comparing Monday to Sunday sales. Oh, I definitely know that's the case. Yeah, I know sales on a Sunday were going to be more buoyant because it's the weekend. And there'll be more people on a Sunday evening just pissing around with player housing. I'm aware of that. Oh, there's a nice big sale. A crate for 30k. Wait, did it? Hurry up. How long will the delta between crafting rank 1 and rank 2 last, as the rank 2 uses are limited? I do, yeah, I am somewhat concerned that with them removing one of the rank of qualities, that there isn't that sort of like stepping stone in the middle of the professions. Ultimately, I think normal and high quality materials are going to end up being very, very similar in price. I think the pressure is going to end up pushing the two materials quite close together. Because native high quality mats will only be produced in mass production, yet normal quality mats will be heavily used in concentration, which I already see being significantly more popular than it has been this expansion. So there's upward pressure on the low quality mats, downward pressure on the high quality mats, and I think they're just going to, there'll be a little bit of repel between them. Like when you push two wrong ends of a magnet, they kind of push against each other. Normal and high quality mats will do that, but I do think like generally they'll end up being pretty similar in price. And the closer they get in price, the worse concentration plays out. So that's the thing that will sort of keep them floating apart from each other. Because unfortunately, I'm pretty convinced they won't balance gathering properly. They won't balance gathering to make high quality materials difficult to get. They will balance gathering so that high quality materials are about as readily available as quality 2 materials were in the War Within, which basically means the entire economy is going to act as if quality 3 doesn't exist. And look what happened to quality 2 and quality 1 materials for the most part in the War Within. They were nearly identical price a lot of the time. And that was with thaumaturgy to churn through a whole bunch of them. Thaumaturgy being, a destructive process. Every time you ran something through thaumaturgy, you deleted 50% of the materials, which at the speed which players could do it relative to the speed in which materials could be gathered is what made it act as a nice little balancer across the economy. But there's really nothing this time round to hold the prices up when they want to go down. Big yields, low material usage, and super low skill to mass produce rank 2. Yeah, I know you've been looking at Inscription, and Inscription was the worst of them by far. So don't let Inscription's performance paint your entire picture of the professions, because Inscription is by far the most broken. No, that's clearly not right, is it? Windows snapping. There we go. Was it this character? Oh, I don't know now. $20K sales are here. One of those panda beds. Good. Oh, this is the realm I've already done. Very TLDR for Inscription at the moment is that if an ink costs 100 gold in mats, you can actually craft it for 36 gold once you have a maxed build. Yeah, that is absolutely subject that, you know, that will without a shadow of a doubt cause markets to look very poor. But I will reiterate for the 10,000th time, Inscription was probably the most broken of all of the professions when I looked at them, so bear that in mind. The best thing though is that now many of you lot have access to the beta as well. These odd anomalies that clearly we need to make sure are fixed before the game goes live. You've all got the opportunity to hop on and, you know, put in your bug reports. The more Blizzard gets spammed with bug reports, the more chance there is of it going to the top of the pile and actually getting fixed. Because we are late enough in the day right now that it's ever so slightly concerning the state of some of the professions. Considering they haven't really added anything substantially new to the professions, there's not too much of a argument to why they're so broken. You know, if they were adding an entirely new subsection or new profession to integrate or something, you could give them some sort of get out of jail free card for it being hella broken. But when actually all they've done is carve things out of the professions for the most part, like there's not that much of an excuse for them to be completely busted. And over the years, I've been less and less inclined to throw Blizzard a bone because they are market leaders in the MMO game, and they pride themselves on that. So you have to hold them to a high standard. They want to pump out content every 8 weeks and have this incredibly fast turnaround of content. Then you got to hold them responsible for trying to do it right. World of Warcraft makes more money than most other franchises of games. Can't even blame Bobby's Yachts anymore. Oh, hello. Why have I got like a shitload of rugs in the bag here? I've bought these and then not put them in the guild bank. This is honestly one of the more frustrating things about this whole setup at the moment. And it's the redistribution of stock that's not listing on certain realms. because it's the one aspect that's very difficult to do on 4 realms at a time, like on 4 accounts at a time, because of the warband bank. Copy paste from Dragonflight, not even from the War Within when you deep dive the ratings. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very much so. I got a sniff of the fact that this expansion's going to play out more like Dragonflight than the War Within, like pretty early on in the alpha. I was like, wait, hang on. This is all feeling very Dragonflight to me. Which goes to show that they have a they have a template that they use for shit that they then edit, and they use the Dragonflight template for the War Within, and then they edited it, and they have now used the Dragonflight template again and are editing it less, it feels. One account per day, like concentration. Yeah. I mean, I am kind of somewhat doing that. I will do all 4 accounts simultaneously for the purpose of posting, but then when it comes to like redistribution of stock, I do it like 1 account at a time. I just have to do it 1 account at a time, really. And yeah, just going 1, 2, 3, 4 across 4 days would probably be the smart way to do it, but I'm willing to throw a little bit more time at it at the moment because there's not so much beta stuff I want to be looking at.
Is that your wallet?
And so it just makes sense.
Both, I hope.
Who is this? Mr. Woo! Woo with a 42. Thank you, my man. Cracking use of the primes. Any other primers in chat? Got to be somebody else out there with a prime that's, you know, needs a new home. See if we can get that goblin hype train on the go. Look at me with my shameless promo. There you go, have a cute puppy. It's actually sleeping. Where's the third one? The other one's down here. $10K of sales, 6K, 32. Now we're talking. That's better. Lots of little small things. Crafting rings are next to then disenchant. Just a 2-step flip. We need to add more layers for it to be very profitable. Yeah, if we try and look for the sort of thaumaturgy style vertical integration, every step of the process, if you can find a conversion that is profitable, the more steps of the process you can add, that's when you can end up taking base materials, run them through a factory of machines, and you spit out 20-30% profits, which is kind of what needs to be there to allow for fluctuation in the prices of stuff. One of my biggest gripes with mass crafting in general is that I am absolutely refusing to fight over like 6% margin. herbs into milling, into inks, into engineer, recycling, into crafting the blues, into then disenchanting. Yeah, that becomes this multi-step. If you consider that there should probably be at the bare minimum 6% profit at each stage, you know, herbing to milling, milling to inks, inks to scrapping, scrapping to blues, blues to disenchanting, you're setting yourself up for at least a 30% profit on the base materials there. The problem is you have to work pretty damn hard for that 30%. This is the thing, which starts to put it in a position where if you're trying to do all of that on one account, that's going to take you a long time. And time is money, which is where you have to kind of like divvy out the tasks to a few different accounts so you can sort of run them simultaneously. Who thought we'd end up playing World of Warcraft like we do Factorio? Who would have thunk it? The difficulty is you've got to make sure that each step of the process is at least going to spin you a profit. Otherwise, you end up with a... Tailoring had this issue a little bit. Tailoring had the issue a little bit with unraveling, that it was often a +1, -1 situation. You would take a loss on unraveling to make a profit spinning bolts, but the two just counteracted each other. And so often you could just buy the bolts pre-crafted off somebody that had done all of the hard work for you without taking a profit themselves. It also didn't help that bolts dropped naturally in the wild. Partly the reason for that, but... And the way Midnight is looking, cloth could end up being very expensive if there's no cheese farm found for it. Which, if that's the case, that will probably mean that carves out any form of tailoring from any sort of processing line, because it won't be cost viable to include tailoring anywhere in the chain. Oh, another 50k realm. Windmill, tablet, throne, fence, yoink. The 20k. Testing the alchemy shuffle now. Seems like concentration is the go-to for high quality gems. Be very careful that prospecting isn't still broken. Most of the final nodes in the prospecting tree do not award the skill they claim they award. This has been a bug since literally day one of the beta. Until that's fixed, prospecting looks probably very different to what it might look when it goes live or when it is fixed. Or, or they just want well, I mean, no, it's clearly a bug because the spec trees are not doing what they say they're doing. It's not a design decision. It's clearly just broken. The TLDR to a lot of the profession stuff, though, and why I'm sort of restructuring my guide for this expansion is that I don't truly believe that crafting professions are going to be a gangbuster adventure of print money. I mean, they will, but just not for very long. I mean, you can't move for tripping over profit in the first couple of weeks of an expansion, but that's because everything is brand new and everything's all over the place. Once things start to normalize and balance themselves out, I'm not convinced there's going to be a lot of money in crafting in Midnight with the way things are shaping up. I think it's going to be a very heavy gathering expansion. And if you can't be bothered to farm, I think moving is into flipping as aggressively as possible. Hence what I'm doing here feels like the play to me personally. Just some simple assumptions that look how competitive a lot of the markets became in the War Within when we had significantly more steps of complexity. They have removed some crucial aspects of the profession system, such as thaumaturgy, which proper utilization of thaumaturgy was your ticket to making profit throughout most of the War Within. So to remove that makes everything even more simplistic. And if even with that level of complexity last expansion, you were often struggling to mass produce things for much margin, I can't see it being more profitable with less complexity. Can you? Just, math and mathing on that one. You can implement changes to keep people on their toes, but if you just carve things out and leave everything else as is, you can't then possibly expect better results than you had before. Is my perspective on it. So I think season one will be what season one always is for crafting. It'll be a wild ride of people trying to figure things out and optimize knowledge points and some spreadsheets and add-ons and calculations and whatever. But by season two, I think you put crafting down, go do something else. A moment of silence for thaumaturgy. I still can't. I genuinely still can't get over the fact that somebody at Blizzard, thaumaturgy was somebody's baby at Blizzard. And most people who played with professions, who took the time to figure out what thaumaturgy did, and took the time to figure out how to use it within the system, would do nothing more than sang its praises all expansion. It was a natural balancing act of materials, making sure that there was at least some value in all forms of farming throughout the entire expansion. Now, not at all times was everything super duper mega profitable. Herbalism and mining struggled. Quite a lot, but skinning was an absolute cash cow the entire expansion. Cloth farming was always very good. Most of the time there was a disenchanting shuffle, and this was all because thaumaturgy allowed you to churn materials round in a loop. So somebody at Blizzard knew that because they built it and they implemented it. And that same somebody has had to see it be ripped out because a handful of people looked at it and thought it was too complicated and didn't try, which must be really frustrating. Thaumaturgy was the Betamax of WoW. Yeah, Sony's Blu-ray pissed on its chips, yeah. Sorry, VHS was also a Sony thing. You went back one generation of technology further than I did there, yeah. HD DVD. Added a big fat logout button for you, by the way. Oh, nice. Okay, I need to update the add-on then. I have /logout macroed and it's on the bar for all of my characters, but for additional characters, it's nice to just be able to whack a great big logout button. It's kind of a, I have the cat with a bandage icon is my logout button right now, but it's quite small and it's on a bar and I have to, really struggling for sales on some of these realms today. Clear difference, I think, between a Sunday and a Monday. I would also point out that my posting of auctions yesterday probably wasn't ideal, as I didn't get a repost later in the evening, which meant most of my items probably sat much further down a list than they should have done most of the day. Stupid Ikea got in the way. In fairness, it was likely the most complicated crafting element in the game, especially if you didn't have a third-party tool. I mean, yeah, I don't disagree that it had moving parts. But the problem is that so many people looked at it, went, this is too much like hard work for me to try and figure out, and then complained about it. And I don't get why it was that feedback that got listened to over all of the people who actually play with professions properly, who are like, yeah, this is a really clever system. The yeah, that aspect of it for me was just slightly confusing. But I've gone on a TED talk about this 15 times, so I'm not about to start it again. It's to the fact that I'm not really in agreement with how they've tried to simplify things. My attempt to simplify professions would have not been to just carve out big chunks of flavour from each one. They've boiled every profession down to its absolute bare bones, and they've just said, right, now it's simple. Ignoring the fact that the profession knowledge point system is just gross. I could really do with some updates. They want simple, they might as well go back to pre-Dragonflight professions at this point. It's not possible. It's just not possible. I get what you mean, but they drew the line in that sand. They drew the line in the sand on that one when they implemented the region-wide auction house. If you had the combination of the region-wide auction house and pre-Dragonflight professions, you might as well just not bother. There's no point of that. Like you can't have a thriving market of flasks when absolutely everybody in the entire region has 1 vial plus 2 herbs as the equation, and with no other variables. There'll be no like, just that it's at that point you just hand the entire profession system to the bots. So I know this has been a common suggestion, but I also would push back quite aggressively on that it's not a positive solution. It is literally nothing more than 3 steps back. Oh wow, we're going to go 4 for 4 with no sales. Oh, we got 1 sale on this round. That was really poor. Yeah, we definitely didn't sell anywhere near as much today, or in the last 24 hours. Definitely not. But we'll get the numbers in a second. Didn't have anywhere near enough like 50k realms. Okay, there's everything posted then. How have we been live? No squeeze out a last hour numbers. Are they going to make much of a difference? They shouldn't. I mean, I can do the quick maths on that. It's not as juicy as yesterday. Oh, hello. 850k. That's literally half. Wow. That's literally 50% what we did from Sunday to Monday. The scary thing is I quite definitely spent more than that yesterday. Yeah, we spent basically the 1.5 million yesterday as well. Okay, maybe today's a day where we don't buy as much. Still can't sniff at, nearly 1 million of sales though. Nearly a million of sales of decor is not bad going. I'll take that. I'll take that all the same. The question is now is, do I want to be a little bit more methodical about redistribution again? I've got an entire guild bank tab and a bit of extra stock here. Who's got... Who's got Warbank access? You've got Warbank access. What's in the Warbank? Oh, we've got quite a lot of stuff in the Warbank as well. Be nice to see the process of distribution. Well, that utilizes the Warbank, which is why I can only do it one account at a time. So once I've quickly got everything reposted, because of course putting things on the auction house is, in my opinion, more important. Where's my other account gone? So I can start on this one, for example. Now what we need to do is we need to give Warbank access to this one account. So we can full screen on this one. This is as simple, really, as opening the Warbank, pulling everything that realm can put on the auction house to the bags, trying to put it on the auction house, and anything that doesn't get listed gets put back in the Warbank for the next account to try. Empty the guild bank first. So, for the most part, what I try to do when relisting the auctions in the first place, there's definitely some places where I didn't do this, but I try and put everything in the guild bank that doesn't get posted on the auction house, or any items that I find cheap that I buy. I put them all in the guild bank. Because every character on every account can always have access to the guild bank. But as you can see, the problem with the guild bank is it's flipping slow. Put things in and out of, which is why you don't want to be doing it en masse or frequently. I've only got 135 slots in my war bank left as well. Not using an operation to move it all forward. Not with the guild bank, no. That's a recipe for crashes and locking items out. The war bank you can play around with warehousing. Even then, you've got to be a little bit careful. Bit of a touchy subject. The way I see it, they wanted crafting to become another time-consuming occupation that would hold players in the game for days, as Mythic Plus and such do. Hence all the talk about the fourth pillar. Turned out players were not intrigued by the system and many outright ignored it. So now developers wriggle, trying to make it work, not understanding the basic flaws of the approach, pretty much as they do with keys. I do think that switching crafting into a more time-consuming process was a direct push against the pull of players that actually enjoy it. I, for one, took crafting to be a way to spend a bunch of the gold that I already had worked in some way, shape, or form to make, to take it and to that the emphasis was quickly, right? I could, instead of spending all that time farming materials, I could buy the materials and then I could quickly craft things and put it on the auction house and then walk away. That was kind of always the great appeal for me of crafting. That once you'd farmed up, spent enough time farming, and once you'd got a nice, pile of gold to play with, you could reuse that capital to shortcut in a way where other people couldn't, right? Now, there was obviously always things like prospecting and milling and stuff that was a little bit time consuming, but the fact that they've built in like ways in me like daily login and priorities for patron orders and this sort of stuff. You're not wrong. They're clearly trying to make the crafting professions a far more time-consuming adventure. This is probably my only argument against the Thaumaturgy, that it was very, very time-consuming, but I do kind of think that decision kind of is counteractive to what made crafting kind of, you know, an interesting adventure for some anyway. If I wanted to calculate all of my efforts and boil everything down to a gold per hour, I'd just go out farm, right? Like that there were, you know, there's no, what's the added value of like, when you do crafting, you accept the fact that your margins are much smaller. You have to risk a bunch of your gold in order to make a little bit more, right? You risk $1 million with the hope of making 1.5 million, but you're risking that million. That has to count for something. And the Kiss curse was that you risk some of your gold to quickly do something, and you know the upside was that it was meant to be relatively quick, and then you could just focus on selling it, putting it on the auction house, that sort of thing. Making everything around crafting take an exceedingly large amount of time very quickly pushes its value to below what you would get by just going out picking up herbs, which I think is a pretty fundamental design flaw, honestly. But for restocking, when I have a wall bank full of goodies that needs redistributing, I simply go to the auction house. Go to the warband bank, make sure that I have the decor group selected, and hit shortfall to bags. TSM knows what I've already got on the auction house. This will pull everything up to my auctioning operation quantity from the wall bank into my bags. And if you do too much, it'll give you that error. So I have to log out and log back in again. Repeat the process again quickly for the last few items. So now it's pulled one of every piece of decor that we had in the wall bank. I say one of every because my auctioning operation is set to only post one, so that's why it only pulls out one. If your operation was set to like post 5 of or something, it would pull 5 out, for example. But now we just go to the auction house, try and post those. What posts, and what doesn't gets put back in the wall bank. So now this realm has gone and got itself 35 additional pieces of decor that it didn't have previously. Now, this isn't a very organized... This isn't super organized in terms of, like, I'm being very picky and micromanagey about what I put where. It's a bit of a shotgun approach, to be honest. But my theory is if it's within my auctioning operation limits to sell it, I set the minimum. So if it posts, then it's good enough for me, right? I know it's not optimizing, and it's not... I could take that item somewhere else and very carefully place it for a higher price. But that level of micromanagement would probably hinder my ability to do all 80 realms. You could micromanage the shit out of it if you're posting on like 8 realms or something, but... And then quite simply we log out, and that's it. We move to the next character. And I repeat this to every realm. Spent 12 hours converting my bankers to a new guild bank, getting the reps back up to friendly. 2 hours later, I got stuff locked in the Guild Bank again the other day. Totally given up using Guild Banks now. Must be something about the way I'm using them. Yeah, the only way I think you are safe interacting with a Guild Bank is by using no add-ons to do anything with it. I even have issues with the Warband Bank, with it giving me bag errors, but at least it doesn't lock items. Which is a frustration, because it means I can only use one account at a time when I'm doing this sort of stuff. But it's still quick enough that I'm happy about it. It's the most efficient way I've found to do it anyway. I've switched to ignore auctions below minimum now, and just don't post on the full pops. Yeah, your stock, your inventory is probably much higher than mine, so that makes a lot of sense. I still consider myself building up an inventory. Yeah, I think that's probably, if you end up with like 60 elk plushies, then you're probably best off just listing it. It's better to have it listed than not listed, but for me, I'm still spending a little bit more time shuffling stuff about, because I don't consider myself to have as much stock as I probably want. Though I am on all realms. I think I am getting to the point where I have more than I need. If you're on all realms, would it be better to control the price of specific deck or markets from a popular shortlist? If they weren't crafted items, probably. It's remarkably difficult to quote unquote control a crafted market, because somebody can just come and produce a whole bunch more of them. Would be, it's not a bad idea, it's just I don't think it would work too well. You could do it on, you could definitely try and do something like that on the more more lumber heavy bits of more heavy lumber crafts, like the 40-50 lumber crafts. People are naturally put off by trying to craft too many and sell too many of those anyway. The sale rate on those also tends to be pretty slow because of that. But in turn, it's also far more difficult for somebody to come along and just casually craft 20 of them, you know? Yeah, you can't control a supply chain when there's a bind-on pickup material involved, unfortunately. It's a valid strategy to try and do, though. Just not on a market where you know, it's too easy for stuff to make, for people to just make new ones. How long did it take you to set up such a structure in a system? But the thing is I already had it in place before Decor even launched. So I can't really say that it took me X amount of time to build it, because it's been just casually built over the years. Most of it was actually put together in 11.1 Undermine patch. But I've been sort of doing similar things for a long time. So once you get in the rhythm of things, the single account time is very short. I'm probably actually spending just as much time logging in and logging out as I am actually doing stuff on the realms now. like I said, this is a bit of a shotgun approach to posting things on the realms. Um, but I think that the only other alternative is to get really too micromanagey with it. Like, there are tools out there, things like Flipping Pal, for example. I know Boofy lurks in chat from time to time. And I do quite like what Flipping Pal does, but I think it promotes a poor way to do flipping. It promotes going to this realm, buying one item, transferring that one item, and putting it somewhere else. Which, sure, if you're willing to do that 8 hours a day, you can probably, over a period of time, pick up one thing and place it somewhere else. And you can probably do that all day long and get some good results from doing it. But I tend to think that if you just set up TSM with your pricing structure accordingly, that if something posts on a realm, it's above your minimum price, you should be happy, move on, do something else. But there's no one right answer to how to do it. How are we doing, Lady Daisy? Welcome in. Good morning. Dogs are very interested to what's going on outside. I wonder if the snowplow's just being passed or something. I'm actually very tempted to do a new add-on profile for these characters because their add-ons seem to be all over the place and it seems to be slowing down my login, log out touch more than I'd want it to. The nice thing about this is using the Warband Miser add-on as well. This is also like controlling the amount of gold that sits on each of these characters as well. If I've spent a bunch of gold on that character, it'll pull gold out of the war bank. If I've sold a few things on that realm, it'll put the gold back in the war bank, and it does, it does all of that automatically for me as well. So it's worth giving each of the characters warband access at least once every couple of days, just so they have the same amount of float. The ignoring any current listing below your minimum and still posting is it's a cool trick I like in TSM. I think it's one that could work quite interestingly on some of the smaller realms where there might only be like 3 or 4 listings in the first place. That if one person has come along and posted one thing like cheap, you just overcut them. And then that one thing might quickly sell, and then it's going to leave yours next in queue at a more at a more sensible price. But I'm not convinced I have enough stock to use that approach yet. But it is a clever one that I like. I have used it before. I'm not finding it too difficult to find a home for a lot of this stuff anyway right now. This is the thing. Soon as I start having enough stock that I find it difficult to find it a home, then maybe we can switch to that approach. I've even found a home for most of these beanbag chairs by the looks of things. Those things were a pain to find a home for. Yeah, not a single beanbag chair in my wall bank anymore. Whew! Need to buy some more beanbag chairs. Who'd have thought? Who would have thought? It does mean at this point, I basically know the tip that it gives you on the loading screen. I think I know all of them off by heart now. If it wasn't for the fact that I'm so keen to get quite a quick turnaround on the items that we buy, I wouldn't need, or I wouldn't feel the need to do this redistribution quite so frequently. When I'm selling pets or transmog or recipes or that sort of stuff, I don't do even half of this. As soon as I find something at home, it just lives there forever until it eventually sells. But now, because I want to focus on as much revenue as possible to make sure that a market crash doesn't nuke the value of all my stock. This is odd, though. The fact that we're still finding places where there are certain pieces of decor that just don't exist on that realm. Now, I know it's early in the morning in most cases, so people could have had auctions expire overnight, but anytime I post something normal at this point, I'm like, okay. There's a Reddit thread overnight asking people to share their gold making journeys from the war within. It was interesting to see how many people made big gold from profession equipment. I wonder how many of those were. I mean, do we think that there was long legs on the profession? Was there really long legs on it, or do we think they were mostly people that just made a bag in season 1 and then didn't bother season 2 and season 3. But hey, if for most people, if you can make 10 mil in season 1, you are absolutely living the dream, aren't you? So it's not knocking it. Yeah, Fred Durst, quite the has quite the way with words. Not exactly Eminem, is he? I mean, I have a few thoughts about profession gear. I've certainly got greater plans to do something that more utilizes my multi-realm setup this time around. It was new and it was shiny in the War Within, and I didn't really take advantage of it too much. But my focus was to go gung-ho on a bunch of crafting. And we did, and it worked out quite well. Season 1 of The War Within, I think I spent about 25 million gold leveling up professions really quickly, but span about 50 million gold out the end of it. So, it was definitely worthwhile. But then soon as season 2 turned up, pretty much dropped crafting like a hot potato. We just went full Mechanica farm. Basically never looked back. I just need to decide whether I try and hit crafting as hard this time round, even though I have great concerns that it's not going to be as lucrative. Or do I try and play to my strengths of I now have 4 accounts with a level 80 character on every server in the EU with lots of practice. So I don't know. Haven't decided. I think there's room even within the profession tools to do some more clever things as well. I mean, without giving the game away too much, there is clearly going to be some profession tools and accessories that are significantly more popular than others. You put your brain in gear for more than a second. Are there also then going to be some stats on those tools that will be more valuable than others? Definitely. Yeah, now we get into some realms where we're finding it more difficult to find homes for this stuff. But you can see we went from a few hundred items in the war bank to like now only 3 rows again. Meaning we found a home for quite a lot of the stuff. This is my TSM graph of a guy that did profession tool and cross realming for the entire year. Well, that's certainly consistent. From 0 to 58 million gold. Across a 12-month period. Top sale 1.187 million. Top purchase 880k. What the hell? Was that? There's a few spikes in there. That's clearly a bit of flipping going on. I earned so much selling sturdy expedition shovels in Dragonflight. Don't doubt selling shovels, yeah. Shovels do sell like shit off a shovel. Yeah, we did Ikea yesterday. It wasn't too tragic. A armchair for my wife's office, and a few other bits and bobs. Nothing that requires large amounts of flat pack or construction, which is nice. To be fair, we weren't really looking for anything too specific. We need a new bed. I'm not too keen on buying a new bed from IKEA though. I mean, to be fair, our last bed was from IKEA and has certainly provided me a place to sleep for the last 10 years, but if I'm going to have another bed that is going to last me the next 10 to 15 years, I think I need to consider the fact that I need a bed that more suits my middle-aged body. The mattress for right now, for example, we have is not suitable for my back these days. I mean, it, like I said, it serves a purpose. I like my gadgets. I want one of those flipping invalid beds with a remote that goes. I want one of them. Yeah, preferably one that massages. Yeah, let's go all out. Agreed. This is a 13-year-old me playlist. What's this, Alan Ant Farm or something? Make sure it's internet controllable so we can help you. Oh god. Twitch controls my remote control bed. Wow, that'd be a recipe for no sleep ever, wouldn't it? As long as you don't plan to buy a waterbed. I mean, it's not the 70s. I can't believe waterbeds were ever a thing. How can lying on a like, I don't understand how that can ever be comfortable or good for you. I mean, last time I checked, I'm not a fish. like I want, I want to sleep on something with a little bit more lumbar support, please. In turn, a new office chair is on the cards. I think at some point this year. This crappy one from IKEA is more than served its purpose. Right. We are only 2 realms away from this account being done. An aversion to fishing, the plot thickens. I was watching K-Chak stream for a little bit last night, and he was doing this flipping fishing fishing spear minigame thing, and I'm like, abso-fucking-lutely not. Like that minigame looks ass. I can live with some abundance farming, but spearfishing? Get out of here. Not happening. I don't care how much of a perception buff it gives me, that ain't happening. Blizzard going big on the quote-unquote fun and engaging gameplay again. Well, I like the fact that they're adding, like, mini games in rather than putting all their eggs in one big delve-shaped basket. But it's clear that they have the occasional swing and miss, don't they? I would rather them add these, like, mini games in at an expansion launch than do what they tried to do in the War Within, which was trial and error these mini games and call it patch level content. No, you can try all that shit in an expand, like things like the Awakening the Machine, for example. You know, that was absolutely fine that turned up at the beginning of an expansion because it served its purpose for a little while, and most people very quickly realized that it's really dumb and it's really boring and we're not really that interested. The Awakening the Machine was actually much, much, much better on the beta for the War Within, but they dumbed it down. They dumbed it down massively for the launch of the War Within, and so hence it was boring. Like, eh. So, to be fair, an expansion launch is time to test these things, but that spearfishing thing, flipping hell. Get out of here. We won't be doing any of that. Bored to death by the machine? Yeah. New beta build today, maybe. Maintenance later today. Possibly. I can't. I would imagine it's probably more likely to turn up on Thursday. But possibly. Undermine golf as well. Well, once they made it so that you can change the trajectory of the ball in the air, it was all right. You could quickly bang it out. Until they added that, though, it was cancerous. Yeah, I was definitely quite proactive with the feedback on the golf. Of that they got to get that better, otherwise it's a no go. I started making the golf hard for myself by just hitting it in the wrong holes. Hey, you got to be careful hitting it in the wrong holes. You'll get into trouble. If they put more effort into less of them, they could be good. I mean, yeah, trial and error is fine. I don't object to a little bit of trial and error, but like I said, I don't want their trial and error to be then what they call patch level content, you know? Here's a crazy ass idea. Employ a focus group to tell you if it's any good or not, and then give it to everybody. This is what a multi-billion-dollar company should be able to afford to do. They shouldn't have to learn by failure quite so much, Blizzard, but they still seem to rely on it quite heavily. Pokemon Snap thing had legs, but the execution again was terrible. There's lots of little things that they, yeah. Tuscar soup was good. Tuscar soup worked well. Do we think it had something to do with the fact, though, that there was a flipping cooking embellishment in there or something that was highly valued and basically bis for everybody? Can't help thinking of a turtle made it to the water. That the lady that did the voices for that passed recently, didn't she? Or a couple of years ago. I'm quite sure. Theatre would have been alright if it wasn't so goddamn flipping laggy. There was nothing too offensive about the theatre event, other than it took me ages to figure out what the Christ I was ever meant to do with it, because it was so laggy half the time that, you know, it was impossible to figure out. Novelty of the public events helped the soup. I don't think they could do it again. What do we think about the hunts, though? I mean, I'm obviously talking about before there was that silly centaur necklace thing that went to the moon, but dare I say, I think Dragonflight got these mini events better than the War Within did. But then again, was it a novelty thing? You know, is anything anywhere near as good second? Like when you get given something second time round, you tend to look at it more at face value. You're not quite so blinded by the fact that all this is new and this is shiny. Which is why we're like, how many expansions in with having flipping world quests? And so, like, I can see what they're trying to do with Prey. But I also think this is why Prey will fall flat on its face. That the Prey system is basically, please go and do world quests for, what, a 5th expansion in a row? Here's a fill the bar and the odd occasional slightly stronger enemy to kill. But you're ultimately just doing world quests. I think this is where Prey is going to struggle. Which is difficult, again, because Blizzard have sort of... They clearly, when trying to advertise Midnight, you know, new Prey system, and it got people excited for what it could potentially be, and I hope they don't make it completely flop. If it is just a fill the bar world quest sim, I think it will struggle to find its place. But then we got Flames Radiance public event. Some home runs and some swings and a miss, for sure. Heroic World Tier in Remix is great, though. The problem with Heroic World Tier, I don't disagree. I think it worked quite well in Remix in the end, even though it did struggle to find its kind of purpose. It just doesn't work in retail. Like, the problem is retail is a game that's designed on the basis of a very tight window of progression each patch. Heroic World Tier was very good because you were going from absolute hitting like a wet fish to God tier OP. And within that period, you could, you went from being nuked in Heroic World Tier to actually being able to play Heroic World Tier and you nuke everything. Like, the progression had such a long tail in Remix that Heroic World Tier ended up working quite well. The issue is that just doesn't fundamentally work in retail, where you've got an entire patch with like a 20 item level banding. That there's not enough room to move to make a heroic world tier system really sort of stand out. So I don't know how they'd implement something like that. And to be fair, this is kind of what people thought was the test platform for Prey, didn't we? We were kind of under the assumption that, oh, heroic world tier is going to be them testing this like extra level of difficulty for the world content. And they kind of almost sold it to us in that way as well. But turns out it's not really going to be much like that. It's just, oh, please go do these world quests, and occasionally you'll get ganked by a slightly stronger mob and have to kill it. It's like, okay. Not as riveting as was maybe first sold. I mean, the game is literally the same since Legion. Nothing entirely new. It's just grind and time gating gets heavier and heavier. There's no doubt that Legion was a massive expansion in World of Warcraft's history. Like, it was the pivot point for an awful lot of stuff, wasn't it? But I think WoW is in need for another pivot point. Do we think that they're going to stretch it out to the last Titan and then do something But the thing is if you could plan if you could plan a game to have the same impact that Legion had, for those of you old enough to have played much before Legion as well, to like truly understand why Legion was quite a pivot point. If Blizzard could plan to do an expansion with that level of impact, why would they not do it each and every time? This is my question. Like, which makes me think that Legion was as successful as it was because it was the amalgamation of probably 10 years of development, and is equally why the expansion before it, Warlords of Draenor, was flipping shit show, because it was whipped together in about 3 years. I do think it's, I do wonder what their plan is for past the last Titan. Because if they're going to, if they've clearly structured it in a way that we're going to get Midnight, we're going to get the last Titan, and then we are to expect something pretty revolutionary to happen thereafter. And this is why, to me, I've said this a few times, and I don't know how many, if anybody, really agrees with this or not, but this World Soul Saga, to me, kind of feels like one expansion being stretched into 3. I think it's only enough of a storyline, really, to really sort of like be one expansion's worth of goodies, but they're just padding it. It feels like they're stretching it across 3 expansions and they're just padding it with a few other bits and pieces. I think this is why we're seeing some patches be significantly better than others. And you can start to pick apart which of the patches are ones that were sort of like designed to be within that one expansion. And you can then also see which of the patches are ones that they kind of are filler patches that they've kind of padded out with. Koresh, for example, is clearly a padded, and the entire patch is just pad. The zone is just clearly taken off the clippings room floorboard and just like put back together to be somewhat functionable. But then you look at Undermine, a patch that had some quite good story, a really well put together zone, like some clear design goals for it. Complete polar opposite patches. Undermine is clearly the one that was meant to be positioned as a major content patch within one expansion. They've come along with Koresh and just like, crowbarred it in there. So we'll see how Midnight plays out if we end up seeing something similar. It's kind of why I am somewhat convinced we'll have Midnight and we'll have The Last Titan. Then we'll transition into a new style of retail, which will be 12 monthly, yearly, 2 patches, expansion launch, and then a content patch. A beginning and an end. I don't think we'll see too much of a middle. I think it'll be an expansion launch, everything that comes with an expansion launch, the thing that Blizzard are historically very, very good at. And then they'll cut out that middle bit completely. The bit where everything is in lull, the bit where they really seem to struggle to keep people's attention. And they'll just roll straight into this kind of scenario we're seeing now where there's actually more to do at the end of this expansion than there was in the middle. And so they'll just smush the beginning and the end together, and they'll just do 12-month expansions from that point on, I reckon. Which makes me think Midnight could be a touch shorter as well. I think it'll be after The Last Titan. I think they'll transition from like an 18-month expansion down to a 12-month one. Is the way I see it going, at least. Have some puppies. I guess story-wise, Koresh was pretty important, but of course the zone is one of the worst ever. Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, they can make a story work every patch, right? Story is something you can easily write, and they can tell the story, and they tell the story via the raids. This is the thing where it's only the strength of the raids that sort of doesn't fit with my theory that it's one expansion stretched to 3. But at the end of the day, Blizzard are very, 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 very good at their raids, right? They can bang out a new raid every 6 months. And in the last couple of years, in the last few expansions, they've got pretty good at it. Their raid content is literally what carries. And it always has, which is why partly one of the reasons I'm not the biggest fan of Mythic Plus, because I tend to believe Mythic Plus is in direct competition with the raid, and I've always thought that World of Warcraft does raiding better than any other. I mean, Final Fantasy is doing pretty well for itself these days, but I also kind of think that Final Fantasy is still in second place to WoW with the raids. And a lot of people, a lot of the people who are good at raiding in World of Warcraft, because they are building a bit of a career around doing that, they are transitioning into Final Fantasy during the off-peak seasons when WoW hasn't got a big raid going, so that they can always consistently be doing something, I think Final Fantasy is just a convenient platform. I'm not taking, I'm not trying to knock Final Fantasy. I've never really played the end game or the raiding in that game, but of all of the games out there, it seems to be people go from WoW, they do the WoW thing, and then they go do Final Fantasy for a bit, and then they come back once WoW's got something new to offer. Just as a way to fill every month with something to do. If, like, endgame raiding is your thing, for example. I'm glad Mythic Plus became a thing, as I don't often have time to raid. Oh, I'm not saying that Mythic Plus doesn't really have its place. I just think it needs to be positioned so that it's not competing with the raid. I think that the raid should still stand out as the pinnacle piece of content, as the piece of content that is the thing you do everything to work towards being able to do better. I think one of the best things they could do for Mythic Plus is completely fork it in a different direction and have it as a completely separate progression path to the raid. There's still much like what they had to do with PvP and PvE like 10 years ago. it got to a point where they couldn't have, they couldn't just build one system. They had to split PvP off entirely. And now it has its own, it has its own progression path. It has its own gearing system. It's completely separated from the PvE scenario because people who enjoyed PvP may not have enjoyed the raiding and vice versa. And having it all smushed into one was, difficult. So, history is repeating itself, and I can only see them doing the same with Mythic Plus eventually. I don't know how much longer that they can keep this up, where like the gearing is basically the same, and you have to. But like we're seeing this with the crest changes going into midnight. There's going to be way more emphasis on raiders to go and do a shitload of high level keys. If you end up being in a guild that's competitive at raiding and is pushing through the mythic content, you are absolutely going to have to be doing high-end Mythic Plus as well. And it's that exact scenario that back in the day was the complaint about PvP, that people wanted to focus on one thing. They may have only had time for one thing, but to be good at one, you were somewhat forced into doing both. Which, if they start pushing people to be doing like 15 to 18 keys just to be competitive at the top end of raiding, that will really grind a few people's gears for sure. Oh, I'd already posted these. Hugging, it's already really rough to push past 12 to 14 keys. If it gets too hard, I'm just not going to bother. Like I said, I think the difficulty more lies with those players that are more restricted on time and feel as if they don't have the ability to just dedicate all their time to the one activity they enjoy the most. And that could be either or, for example, that could be either or. You could want to be just, you could just want to do, a key or two, or 2, 3 keys an evening with friends, for example. But if there's more and more emphasis to push higher and higher and higher, like you said, it's going to start getting to a point where, unless you turn up with that pre-arranged, organized for other people, and you all as a team of 5 just progress together, it could get real sweaty and real gross. And then on the raiding side, if you raid logging has been a thing literally forever in this game. People want to be able to like do a little bit of, solo play, a little bit of solo work. They'll do their questing, their rep grinds, they'll kill some rares, they'll do bits and pieces, maybe get their crafting up to speed. They predominantly want to log in and go kill raid bosses. That ability, when Mythic Plus is going to dangle this carrot of really high level gear in front of you, a lot of raids will be like, we need you to turn up with these crests. We need you to have obtained that gear so that we can push at the rate that we all want to do. And that will make it more difficult for some. And this is why I think the two systems need separated progression paths, separated gear. Swipe and buy boosts. All the best effect items are in the raid, but I can't keep a consistent schedule, so I then only end up playing Mythic Plus. Yeah, and it's because there's that, are ties between the two pieces of content. That they're two different directions of PvE content in the game that are both going to pull your time and attention. And I genuinely believe that the play is to just separate them. If you have all the time in the world and you have the desire, you can choose to fully progress through both of them. But if you are more limited on time, you should be able to predominantly focus towards one, still see reasonable success. But I don't really have a stake in either of them. I make gold, so my opinion can easily be ignored. I suggest people do. You know, at the end of the day, Mythic Plus was built to fix Blizzard's problem of, you know, heavily, like, they're just hemorrhage subs once the raid had finished. And Mythic Plus was a perfect way to give people the opportunity to just redo the same shit as many times as they can, and as long as they are slowly being drip fed some reason to do it, they'd stick around longer. Like Mythic Plus is purely designed for engagement from the ground up. I'm not saying that it can't be fun, but you got to understand why it was designed and why it was built the way it is. And then, yeah, if you're pushing higher content and you got to just lurk for best part of an hour just to get into a reasonable group, then I can imagine that's very difficult. Or frustrating, if nothing else. What's the add-on above your cam? Goblin Toolbox is the title of the window. Yeah, it's called Goblin Toolbox. It's just not fully publicly released yet. If you jump in the Discord, there's a channel in the Discord where you can grab a copy of it. It's not made by me, by the way. It's a community member, Woo, who has put it together. I assume it will be out soon. Do you know of an add-on or a page that shows you how much lumber you need for each expansion? There was a spreadsheet that Persephone made. I don't know how accurate it actually ended up being, because they changed material values around a little bit, but it's give or take 400 to 500 lumber per expansion, roughly, assuming you just want to craft one of everything. But if you've you can just add everything. You can just add one of everything to a group in TSM. Is another way of doing it. That's your goal. Does ATT track it? It maybe does. Yeah, maybe ATT will give you, if you do ATT /ATT and then shift click on the lumber, it might break it down for you that way. That's a good point. Another one posting at normal price. Right. I've nearly fired through these 2 accounts now. I'm not sure if I can be bothered to do the other accounts right now. Especially since I'm not really spreading that much stock around. Most of these realms seem to have the basic decor stuff already. Oh, where did all these barrels come from? Aha. This is another good thing about doing this, is that sometimes I stumble across a character that's bought a bunch of shit and I forgot to like put it in the war bank or the guild bank or something. Now I have a bunch of wine barrels to distribute. Questing in the Void Storm is basically Koresh 2.0. I haven't lore mastered the Void Storm zone. I did enough in the zone to level up my character, but it wasn't a zone I played too much on the beta or even on the alpha. It seems quite big though as a zone, because you've got that entire northern part of it, which is almost big enough to be a zone by itself. Didn't get to try it. The quest in Harandir bugged for 2 weeks plus. I hope it's getting fixed today. Yeah, I heard some people saying that the campaign quests are bugged, which is going to put a real dampener on people's ability to like actually test things on the beta, because if you weren't able to get the campaign completed, you also weren't able to unlock adventure mode, meaning you're kind of completely unable to test like the actual level 90 experience. No, I'm not doing cancel scans. What am I doing? Brain's not working today. I had coffee, but I'm going to be brutally honest. I've got to do my taxes today. I didn't have time to do it before the stream, and it's something I've been procrastinating about doing it because it's hella annoying to do. But I'm going to need to do that this afternoon. That's clearly fuzzing up my brain. Send a bunch of WoW gold to the government. They don't take it, unfortunately. Believe it or not. Believe it or not. I mean, flipping hell. They're like, they Taxman doesn't understand what it is I do in the first place. Especially since, you know, my revenue comes from Twitch, which pays me from America, from YouTube, that pays me from Ireland. I have a few other streams of income. Patreon, which also pays me technically from America. Taxman gets mighty confused about what the hell it is I'm doing. They're getting better slowly over the years, but oof. This is why it's usually quite a fun adventure trying to explain my expenses. I make videos on the internet. Then why do you have all of these expenses? Well, you know that thing you need to make videos called a computer? Ta-da! It seems like real simple shit, but it's most nations do not understand content creation as a form of income at all. And it's 50-50 whether you end up speaking to somebody. If you ever have an issue or a question, It's 50-50 whether you end up even speaking to somebody who knows what YouTube is. And that if you manage to speak to somebody that does know what YouTube is, then you've got to hope and pray that they understand what Twitch is. If not, you are done. If not, put down the phone, try again. Like it's this is why I hope and I pray most of the time that it's just a smooth process, that there's no hiccups. As soon as I need to try and explain anything to anybody, it gets real annoying. Found the farm in the beta. What's this? 224 adventurer BOEs. Okay. Time to adopt the Jimmy Carr strategy? Well, probably not. No, I don't think that's equally not the solution, unfortunately. The thing is it like it's difficult to even like get an accountant to like help you out with this sort of stuff because there's equally the same problem that accountants don't understand it either. And as you can imagine, in a country like Finland, the choice is not what it could be other places. But yeah, it's the admin paperwork side of doing this. It'd be lovely to just give somebody some money and them do it all for me, but that's not possible. Same with cryptocurrency stuff. Tax advice can be expensive and they have no idea what they're doing. Yeah. In Australia, can just call it a hobby and pay zero tax. I mean, that doesn't float in Finland. I don't mind paying the taxes. I just wish they'd make it more easy for me to report what I make and what I have to spend on making that money. And I wish they'd just give me a simple number and it would be GG. But there's a little bit more to it than that, unfortunately. To give the Finnish government some credit, though, at least all the tax service is available in English. If it wasn't, I'd be right up shit creek. I think subs are just another form of tipping. Maybe I can get away with that in the US since they no longer tax tips. I cannot quote on any form of American anything. No disrespect, but your system seems to be more backwards than any other country on the planet right now. Right. we actually managed to find a home for nearly most everything. All of these wine barrels I just found on a character a minute ago anyway, so they'll find a home sooner or later. Seem to have a few too many Borealis bottle lamps for some reason. I must have over-purchased a touch on these somehow. But the rest of the stuff has found a home quite nicely. And the gold in the war bank is going up, which is also a nice thing to see. Which means the system is working as intended. We're going up in the world. But, boys and girls, for the aforementioned reason that I do have some admin to deal with today, I am going to leave it there for now. I know it's still pretty early. It's quite a short stream. I apologise for that, but I got to get this sorted today, so I'm going to get that done. Boys and girls, thank you all for joining. We'll be back tomorrow. We will keep our eyes open for a beta build. The next beta build is going to be an interesting one to dive through and have a little bit of a look at. There's a chance it turns up today, but it's 50-50 because it's like normal maintenance for retail today. They tend not to collide the two things together. There's a chance the beta build might not turn up until Thursday or tomorrow night or the night after. We'll see. When it turns up, we'll have a little bit of a poke around and we'll have a play. But I'm going to leave it there for now. Thank you for joining. Enjoy the rest of your day. Come say hi on the Discord if you're not there already. Soon as we get this beta build, actually, I can start padding out like the basic mini guides in the Discord as well for the professions, which could be useful for people to just like catch up, get up to speed. That's the goal of them, at least anyway. So yeah, boys and girls, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you next time. Peace.